Going up.
Prices keep going up these days. It feels like being on an elevator that only goes up.
Going up.
But not at Metro. We're pushing the down button.
Going down.
We've lowered prices. Get one line of 5G data for $40, period. That's 20% lower. And you get a free Samsung 5G phone when you bring your number. Only at Metro.
5-year guarantee on eligible plans. Exclusions apply. See website for details. Not available if at Metro with T-Mobile in the past 6 months. Tax applies.
When was the last time you refreshed your bedding? Sleep cooler with Avocado's naturally breathable, certified organic sheets. Choose from GOTS certified organic cotton, linen, or hemp. All made safe certified to the highest standards of non-toxic safety, delivering the ultimate in luxury, sustainability, and style, and a deeper, more restorative sleep. Join Avocado's mission to be one of the world's most sustainable brands at avocadomattress.com.
Welcome to the Dogs Podcast with your hosts, Blake Reneker, Justin Charles, and Josh All.
Hey, what's up, Browns fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Dogs Podcast. Josh All, your host with you today, and I've got Barry Shuck, staff writer from Dogs by Nature, joining me on the episode today, and we're going to be talking rookie breakdowns for the Browns, get Barry's expert opinion and takes on each of the Browns' 7 rookies that they drafted. I didn't even mention this before the show, Barry. Maybe we'll touch on a UDFA or two if you've got an opinion on a couple of those guys. If not, no big deal. We'll just stick with the draft picks. But I know there was a couple of these guys that you actually got to meet at the Senior Bowl, so we'll definitely talk about that when we get to those guys as well. Schedule came out, though. I think you wanted to say a little bit about the schedule, yeah?
Yeah, I do. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm doing very well. Like I told you before we started recording, just working on those, not very much sleep is all I can really say. Today's one of those days. I am struggling through my words. It was a rough night with the baby and the 4-year-old being awake, so it's all good. Yeah. I'm up. I got coffee. Let's do this.
Yeah, 2 children is so much different than one, isn't it?
Whew, man, is it ever. Is it ever.
Yeah, the schedule came out, and what was weird about it to me was there was no primetime games. Were you expecting any?
No, actually. Personally, I was not expecting any primetime games for the Browns this year.
Okay.
So looking back at last year, we had more primetime games last year than I thought we were going to ahead of the schedule release.
Oh, yeah.
And then by the time we got to those primetime games toward the end of the season, it was a crap show for Cleveland. We had DTR. The offense was abysmal. Nobody wanted to watch the Browns. We got flexed out of primetime. So I don't blame them for saying, we have no idea what you guys are doing this season. We're not putting you primetime.
Yeah, several flexes last year. Another thing I noticed was all of the games are on regular network carriers. There's only one game that's being carried by an off network, and that's NFL Network. So we're not getting any of those eyeball network games this year.
Right. And the NFL Network, I'm sure that's the London game, which they always broadcast those ones in the morning. So that's 9:30 a.m. here for us Eastern Standard guys. But the only game when I was looking ahead at the schedule and everything was the Week 14 game. It's the Browns hosting the Titans. So I posted this on social media the other day. If we get to that point in the season, and it's later, so I don't know if they did this on purpose, but you schedule the Titans and the Browns a little later in the season. Maybe by then, Shadur Sanders, maybe he's starting at quarterback. Maybe we're testing that out to see how it goes. That could be a Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders matchup that potentially, if both teams are, reasonably fun to watch, could get flexed into a primetime spot if the league, decide to do that.
Yeah, and if he's still on the team, because right now the Browns have 5 quarterbacks, and they're only going to keep 3. Of course, Deshaun Watson will end up on IR at some point, but the Browns have got to cut one guy at some point at the end of training camp, and if they cut Dillon Gabriel or Shadur Sanders, both of those will be claimed off waiver wire. So there's no telling what will happen as far as the quarterbacks go.
Yeah, I mean, if a quarterback gets moved, I would look more for a trade over training camp during the summer and all that kind of stuff. But you don't think there's any chance they keep 4 quarterbacks going into the season? We kept 4 last year to start the season. We kept Watson, Jameis, DTR, and Tyler Huntley on the initial 53.
Yeah, it could. But And then another thing is they have that a lot of times they'll keep four guys in the quarterback room, and then oddly enough, one will get stuck on IR, and that's a way to stash a guy. But and they can protect a guy on practice squad, but you got to be able to release him and have him go through waiver wires and then reclaim him before you can put him on practice squad, before you can put him on the stash list and protect him. So that's not going to happen, but they could keep 4 quarterbacks, and then I would expect the very next day one of them goes on IR, and that gives them 4 weeks to figure out what to do with him.
Gotcha. Yeah, the quarterback situation will be an interesting one to watch as the summer goes on, and of course, we'll be talking to those quarterbacks here on the episode today. Before we dive into the rookie breakdowns here with Barry, just want to remind everybody, please like the video on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, tap the notification bell. Make sure you guys follow us on all the socials at the Dogs Podcast, and head over and check out dogsbynature.com. Follow Barry on Twitter. What's your handle on Twitter?
At Barry_Shuck.
That's okay. Barry_Shuck. So go give him a follow. Great stuff from Barry. He's been making guest appearances on the podcast now for like 4 or 5 years now. I'm not even sure how long it's been, but it's been a good long run, a good relationship that we've developed here with Barry, and we're ready to pick his brain on these rookies.
Think about it. The first time I was on your show, you had 0 children.
I did have
Think
0.
about that.
I did. Yep, I got the 2 in a short period of time. That's for sure.
Yeah. and the site is dogsbynature.com. It's part of SB Nation. We got some very talented writers, and it's like a daily newspaper. We've got stories all the time, and then by tomorrow, that story's come and gone, just like a daily newspaper. But we're very in depth. We cover every aspect. We cover and talk about players that you don't even know about. Like I thought the biggest player that nobody was talking about was the linebacker we took in the second round, Carson Schwesinger. And when we talk about stuff like that on Dogs by Nature, but it's dogsbynature.com, Josh.
Okay, that's great. Everybody go check that out and give Barry a follow. So let's kick off the conversation with these rookies. We'll start off with the number 5 pick. First of all, were you surprised when they came out and they had traded the number 2 pick to move back to 5? What did you think about the trade and what we got back in return?
Yeah, I was completely surprised. Now, I realized that other teams were trying to trade up and to get into the number 3 spot, the number 2 spot. Of course, the Titans, we knew who they were going to take. But I was completely surprised because all of the information that was coming out of Berea was that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry were just infatuated with Travis Hunter. It was like the unicorn that we haven't seen in forever. It was the next Jerry Rice. It was the next Deion Sanders, all rolled up into one. And I just truly expected that to happen. Me personally, I liked Abdul Carter. I thought he was a unicorn as well, him and Myles Garrett. But I'm always a person that wants to build a team from the offensive line and the defensive line and then fill in from there. So for to put Myles Garrett with Abdul Carter, I thought was a good fit right there and a good situation. I know Carter had some foot issues, but he played with it all year. He didn't complain about it. And the doctors at the combine did not recommend surgery. So to me, that meant his whatever foot condition could be resolved very easily. But for them to trade like that, I also did a story at one point and says, why isn't anybody talking about Mason Graham? I mean, can he be the number 2 pick? And then I wrote a story about that. Of course, at number 5 is where he was ranked. So that was perfect for the Browns. Number 2 was considered a reach. And then you're jumping over players that were probably better than Mason Graham. But, the Browns last year and just had a run stoppage problems. They were 21st in the league against the run. They were 17th as far as 20-plus yards allowing other teams to have. And they allowed 101 first down conversions on running plays. So they had a huge run stoppage problem. And what Mason Graham does is he is able to plug those holes. When they signed Malik Collins, and then, of course, we got Shelby Harris coming back, and then we've got Ralph Hawley as coming from the Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts. Then we've got Mike Hall. That seems like it's going to be a very good room now. I think what Mason Graham does is he fits with Jim Schwartz's scheme, which is an attack-style defensive line. You know, what Jim Schwartz does is most teams will take the linebackers or a safety and blitz them. So now you've got 5 rushers, sometimes 6, against 5 offensive linemen, sometimes with a running back, a tight end, or a fullback to compensate for that. But that's not what Jim Schwartz does. He requires his 4 defensive linemen to provide all the pass rush and to provide enough run stoppage. Then that frees up the linebackers to cover the running back coming out of the backfield, to cover the tight end coming out, and also to be run stoppers. So that puts a lot of pressure on the 4 defensive linemen. Everywhere Jim Schwartz has been, his defensive linemen, at least 2 out of the 4 go to the Pro Bowl. And so that is his scheme. It's an attack-style defense, and it prioritizes attacking the line of scrimmage. And that's what Mason Graham provides. He is valuable in the run game, and he's capable of holding his own against blockers and plugging running name. Now, I'm going to ask you something, Josh. Playing and going against offensive guards and centers in the AC and the Big Ten, that's a lot different than coming to the NFL, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because in the NFL, everybody is an NFL player. And in the Big Ten, you're playing against some future NFL players.
Exactly. I think Graham is expected to be a disruptive force in the passing game. He's able to penetrate the pocket and affect quarterbacks. Looking back at his college stats, he had 3.5 sacks last year, 3 sacks in the year before. So he's not a big sack guy, but he's a guy that gets into the offensive backfield quite a bit. That's what Aaron Donald did. Aaron Donald was okay against the run, but it was his pass rush that nobody could stop him. They had to double team him quite a bit. I'm not saying Mason Graham's Aaron Donald, of course, but he does the same style of rushing where he's able to slip into gaps and to get in the offensive backfield. And whether he puts a pressure or a knockdown or a quarterback hit, he's disruptive in that offensive backfield. And I think he, with Mike Hall, with Shelby Harris, I think that's going to finally solve the problem for the Browns of how to stop the run.
I agree. I think that, putting him, we talked to Joe Thomas actually on the podcast earlier this week, and we asked him about Mason Graham, on that defensive line next to Myles Garrett. And he said putting a guy like Mason Graham next to Myles Garrett rather than an edge rusher on the opposite side actually helps Myles Garrett more, because now you can't take your guard tackle or your center guard tackle and shift them toward Garrett. If you've got a guy like Mason Graham right next to him, that takes that guard and center's attention. So this could be very good for Myles Garrett. Hopefully, he just got the huge contract and everything. So even if Mason Graham's not the one bringing the quarterback down, he could be creating the opportunities for Myles Garrett to bring the quarterback down, and that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, that's well said. I think Graham brings a combination of size and speed and power to the Browns' defensive line, and specifically targeting the interior of the line. His ability is the stop the line of scrimmage and generate a pressure on the quarterbacks. That's what we've needed for a long time. I expect Malik Collins probably to start, or Shelby Harris, with Ralph Hawley and Mike Hall and Mason Graham to try to compete for the other spot. But another thing about Jim Schwartz is he does a rotation of his defensive tackles all throughout the game. So he may or may not start this game, but you're going to get 40% of the snaps and give every rest. He doesn't do that as much on the defensive line, defensive end, but he does with defensive tackle. You constantly see guys coming in. So you may start, you may not start, but there's very little difference of playing 50% and playing, 45% of defensive snaps.
Yeah, for sure. And, the big thing that I really like, I mean, obviously his abilities, his athleticism, all that kind of stuff is great, and what made him a top 5 pick. But what I love so much about Mason Graham is his football IQ and his motor and his just sheer want to be a good football player. And that also applies to the next guy the Browns drafted, which is somebody you mentioned already a little bit in the intro, was Carson Schwesinger out of UCLA. So talk to me about Carson. What do you think about him? JOK's injury, what kind of door is open for Schwesinger to come in here and make an impact as a rookie?
Yeah, I expected when first round was over with, you look at the guys that were supposed to be first round picks, and if you got the first pick in the second round, that's first round talent for second round pay.
Right.
And I looked at the complete list and I thought, well, here's the safety from South Carolina.
Yep.
Here's Luther Burden, the wide receiver from Missouri. It's just a plethora of talent just waiting for the Browns to pluck one that should have been in the first round. I heard Andrew Berry got a lot of offers, but he stuck. And then when he took Schwesinger, I knew of Schwesinger, but I never considered him to be the number 33 pick until I went and did the research after he was drafted with him. He was a special teams player. He's a walk-on number 1 for UCLA. He only had 2 college offers, and one was a D2 offer. The other was with the Naval Academy. He did a walk-on. His sister went to UCLA, and he played mainly special teams his freshman year. He played special teams and some defensive snaps in his sophomore year. Then in his junior year, he became a starter, and he led the nation in solo tackles with 90. 90, so not 90 total tackles, 90 solo tackles. He had 136 total sacks, total tackles during the year, and he was just all over the place. He if you watch tape of him, he doesn't hesitate. He reads run, he picks a gap, and he goes after the player immediately. Now, here's the thing about taking Schwesinger. If Andrew Berry knew that JOK was going to come back, maybe not for training camp, but be ready for week 1, would he have drafted Carson Schwesinger? I don't know. I think we needed a safety more. I think we needed another primetime receiver more. Running back, we could have had our pick there. Maybe he doesn't take Schwesinger. But I think Andrew Berry already knew or had a good idea that he wasn't going to get JOK back this year. Well, that creates a huge hole because JOK is either the leading tackler or second to leading tackler behind Grant Delpit. So you got Jordan Hicks in the middle, which Schwesinger is a middle linebacker, but I played linebacker. I played middle linebacker. We're interchangeable. You play the weak side, you play the strong side. It doesn't matter. Your duties and responsibilities are different, yes, but you learn them pretty quick. Then you got Mohamed Diaby, who is played well. He had 11 starts last year. Devin Bush had 10 starts last year. I think he had a resurgence. He had 70 total tackles last year. So don't think that he's just a one-off and he's just they re-signed him to a 1-year contract. So if you put Schwesinger in to compete and put Diabete and Bush to compete the other side with Hicks, we know Hicks is going to make a bunch of tackles. You've got guys and put Winston Reed in the mix. You've got guys that are going to make tackles because that's what Jim Schwartz's defense requires. The linebackers to make tackles in the run game.
Yeah, and we've also added Jerome Baker to the linebacker room. So the linebacking core went from being a unit where maybe in years past it was like, we got JOK, and then we've got like some of these other just rotational guys. I feel pretty good about it this year, and I feel good knowing that while I have high hopes and expectations, as we all should, being the 33 pick for Carson Schwesinger, he does have time to ease into his role on the defense with these other veteran guys ahead of him who already know what they're doing, and we already know that they can make plays. So I feel really good about him as a rookie, but I feel really good about his long-term prospects with the Browns.
Yeah, and he's 242 pounds. He's a thumper. 6'2", 242. He's got 4.7 speed. He's an absolute thumper. So it's not like he's 215 and trying to make tackles. He is a load. He's one of those old school, back in the 80s and the 90s with the New York Football Giants. All of their linebackers were 250, and they wanted those guys to be 6'3", 6'4", 250. That's kind of what Schwesinger is. He's got a hot motor. He's got sideline to sideline range. He's a 3-down linebacker, which is exactly what you want. And he only missed 7 tackles last year. He made 137 tackles and missed 7 tackles. That tells you that percentage-wise, he is a dependable guy that's going to make tackles, that's going to go off. He's got a dog mentality when chasing down ball carriers in space. And he's got I'd say, Josh, a quick trigger downfield with natural instincts, like I said, to shoot gaps and beat blockers and find the spots in the run game and just attack.
Yeah, and he made the big highlight, play in training or mini camp that went around social media where he picked off a pass from Dillon Gabriel and took it back. I mean, he's a very athletic guy, and like you said, he's JOK, was a more of a hybrid tweener. Where are we going to play him type of player when we drafted him, because he was kind of built more like a safety, but he played linebacker. He was like 220 pounds. Schwesinger is not that. You're right. He's like 245. He's big. You see him out there on the field. And I know they were just in shorts and everything, but the dude is thick. He's built. And for him to be that size and to play at that speed with those instincts is incredible. And, the Browns got a guy here at 33 who had incredible production in his final year in college. But then a couple picks later, they take a guy who had incredible production his entire career in college, in Quinshon Judkins, the running back out of Ohio State. But his first 2 years at Ole Miss were incredible. He was, SEC Freshman of the Year, his freshman year and all that stuff. So talk to me about Quinshon Judkins and, is this the new workhorse back for the Browns? This episode is sponsored by Omaha Steaks. Browns fans, it's almost Memorial Day, and the best part about the holiday weekend is getting together with your friends, your family, and grilling out some steaks, burgers, dogs, whatever you want on the grill in the nice warm weather. And Omaha Steaks right now is making it easy for you guys to load up on the best food for your Memorial Day parties. During their Memorial Day sale, you can now get 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $35 off when you guys use promo code BARK, B-A-R-K, when you check out. At my house, we're huge fans of the steaks, and those smash burgers that they came out with, oh my gosh, are those things delicious. Make sure you guys order some of those as well, because Memorial Day is the unofficial start of summer, and it's the perfect time to get fired up for grilling with the exceptional handcrafted flavor and convenience of Omaha Steaks. So bring home the world's best steak experience with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their Memorial Day sale. And for that extra $35 off, use promo code BARK, B-A-R-K, at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com. See site for details.
Going up.
Prices keep going up these days. It feels like being on an elevator that only goes up.
Going up.
But not at Metro. We're pushing the down button.
Going down.
We've lowered prices. Get one line of 5G data for $40, period. That's 20% lower. And you get a free Samsung 5G phone when you bring your number. Only at Metro.
5-year guarantee on eligible plans. Exclusions apply. See website for details. Not available if at Metro with T-Mobile in the past 6 months. Tax applies.
Close your eyes and imagine what you'll look like 6 months from now. How's your hair look? The same? Now picture how your hair would look if you started using Hims. If you're picturing the same you as before, but with much thicker and fuller hair, you'd be correct. What can happen in 3 to 6 months? You could pick up a new hobby and get not that good at it yet. You could do about half of your New Year's resolution. You could learn a few songs on the piano or pick up bass guitar. Or you could start seeing thicker, fuller hair regrowth through Hims. Not bad for just 3 to 6 months. Men, if you're starting to notice your hair thinning when you look in the mirror, you're not alone. Life just gets busier and busier, and it can feel like there's not enough time in the day to do something about it. So, try Hims Hair Loss Solutions. You can avoid jumping through a bunch of frustrating hoops and get access to treatment without even leaving your home. Hims provides you with the convenient access to a range of hair loss treatments that work, all from the comfort of your couch. Hims makes treating hair loss simple with doctor-trusted options and clinically proven ingredients, like finasteride and minoxidil that can regrow hair in as little as 3 to 6 months. Choose from personalized chewable, oral, spray, and serum treatments to find what works best for you. The process is simple and 100% online, so there are no uncomfortable doctor visits. Answer a few questions and a medical provider will determine if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your treatment is sent directly to you for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. Hims has hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, and they can help you get your confidence back too with visibly thicker and fuller hair. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/Hail Mary. That's HIMS.com/Hail Mary for your personalized hair loss treatment options. hims.com/Hail Mary. Results may vary based on studies on topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Prescription products require an online consultation with the healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information.
Shop the Sherwin-Williams Memorial Day sale and get 30% off paints and stains May 16th through the 26th. With prices starting at $34.29, it's the perfect time to transform your space with color. Whether you're looking to revamp your bedroom, living room, or home office, we have you covered with bold hues, soothing neutrals, and everything in between. Shop the sale online or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Yeah, he better be. If we're not going to re-sign Nick Chubb, and of course when Jerome Ford took a pay cut, that kind of X'd out Nick Chubb being back. Yeah. Judkins 4.48 speed. He's 6 foot, 221 pounds. So he's not your 200-pound scat back. He is a load.
Yeah.
When he was drafted, I was texting back and forth with a friend of mine who's an Ohio State fan, a Cleveland Browns fan. And I said, well, there's your Ohio State player. He said, yeah, they picked the wrong one. Meaning they should have picked Travion Henderson. Okay, well, let's do a little comparison here. Judkins has 4.48 speed. Let's say Travion Henderson has 4.43. So basically, they're both really fast. They're about the same. Let's look at their college production. Travion Henderson, career-wise, had 3,761 yards. Okay. Judkins, for his career, had 3,785 yards. About the same. Would you say, Josh?
Yeah, pretty comparable.
Those numbers are about the same. However, Judkins' numbers is for 3 years, and Henderson's is for 4.
Yeah. And, okay, so I was going to say, as an Ohio State fan myself, obviously I watch every single game and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I love both these guys, and I was all hyped for Henderson. If he came to the Browns, I was hyped for Judkins. I wanted either one. But it just comes down to what the Browns want to do. Henderson's not your workhorse back. He's not a 3-down back. He's not the guy who's going to come in here and handle a heavy workload. He dealt with injuries in college and that kind of stuff. That's just not his game, where I think the Browns want that workhorse guy that they can lean on and say, give him the rock, pound the ball. He is built to do that. And I think that's why they took Judkins.
Yeah, I think he's just a replacement for Nick Chubb.
Yep.
Is what I do. You look at his body style. He's got tremendous hands. Absolutely great in the receiving room. Last year alone, he had 161 receptions in the college game, and we're talking about in a 13-game schedule for the regular season. 22 receptions for 161 yards. But in his receiving, as far as his rushing goes, he had 14 touchdowns last year and 45 for his college career. Now, that's in 3 years. I think he's going to completely replace Nick Chubb in the running game. Don't be surprised if in week 1 he's a starting back. I don't know what they're going to do with the rest of the room as far as Pierce, Strong go. And they got a fullback in camp this year. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I don't know if they're going to lean towards doing a fullback again this year. But as far as Judkins goes, he's great at a stiff arm. He's got exceptional vision when working behind zone blocks, and he's consistently, he seems to mesh pointing, and he shows patience without becoming hesitant. I think he thrives in short yard situations, which last year we were the league's worst about converting third downs. Absolutely. Every week we would go 2 for 9, 3 for 12. We were horrible at it. So we finally got somebody that's going to be able to push the sticks on third down. I think he's got natural hands. Like I said, he's a good pass catcher, and he doesn't need break stride on his swing pass. He's got timing. And I think he doesn't fumble the ball much. He's got good ball security fundamentals. He had 3 fumbles and 800 touches. And I think he's a good pick. Now, whether him or Henderson should have been the pick, we will find out. But I think Judkins is more productive overall than Henderson in his Ohio State career.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people comparing the duo of Henderson and Judkins to the duo of Nick Chubb and Sony Michel when they came out together, back in 2018. And, yep. Sony Michel was kind of the more that smaller back, the home run hitter, kind of like Travion Henderson is, whereas Nick Chubb was the early down grinder, the guy you can lean on for the short yardage and to pick up the tough yards. And that's Judkins. But the thing with Judkins, Nick Chubb had the catastrophic knee injury at Georgia in college. Quinshon Judkins never missed a game in college. So the durability is there. He doesn't have those concerns coming into the NFL. And like you said, fumbling's not an issue. And you said it well, underrated pass catcher. He really is. He can catch balls out of the backfield and do something in the receiving game. So I'm really excited for Judkins this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's going to be that stud back. He's going to be in the more mold of Nick Chubb because of his weight and his height and all. And we learned with Nick Chubb. We love Nick Chubb. We wish they would sign Nick Chubb and give him a 1-year deal. We want that right now today. Let's call Andrew Barry. We'll call him collect and then say, please sign Nick Chubb. But Nick Chubb had knee issues in college.
Yeah.
Look what happened it's like anything else. I got a right ankle that I can sprain in like 5 seconds because it kept reoccurring. And I guess I'm just susceptible to sprain ankles in my right leg now. I think that's the way Nick Chubb is. And like you said, Judkins never been hurt. He's durable. We like that are durable, just like on the defensive side. We like guys that make tackles and don't miss tackles. That's consistent. We like people on the offense that are not going to hurt and stay healthy, because looking like the offensive line last year, how many combinations and how many people were on IR that kept getting hurt. We have to reach out and sign this guy for a few games or 9 games or whatever. So for Judkins to be a durable guy, that may have been what swayed Andrew Barry and Kevin Stefanski on Judkins over Henderson, because, if you first look at Henderson, you would think that Henderson would have been the pick. But with his body style in the 4th round, they took Dillon Gabriel, which is basically a Henderson clone as far as body size and stature. And I was really surprised that they took 2 backs in one draft. Were you?
Well, no. And it's because, on the podcast over the months leading up to the draft, we had talked a lot about the potential of adding to, at the time, we had like 11 draft picks when we first started with the draft talk. It was like, well, let's use two of those on running backs and just revamp this room because we're not confident in Jerome Ford. We've seen what he can do over the last couple of years. It ain't much. And every mock draft that I did leading up to it, at least I think every mock draft, if not everyone, most of them, I had two running backs coming to the Browns. One earlier, paired up with one later. And a lot of times I was doing like an early down grinder, like a Caleb Johnson, a bigger bodied back, and then pairing him with a smaller, speedster, which, we'll kind of jump out of order here in terms of how they were drafted. But let's talk about Dillon Samson and how he, complements Quinshon Judkins.
Yeah, I do a mock draft myself every year. I picked Dillon Samson in the third round. We had 2 third-round picks. I picked a quarterback, number 3, the first pick in the third round. Then I picked Dillon Samson later in the third round. For him to be there, really surprised me. He was second team All-American. He was the SEC Offensive Player of the Year. We're talking about the SEC is a premier elite league, and for him to be the Offensive Player of the Year, that's an amazing feat. As far as production goes, he had 1,491 yards and scored 22 touchdowns. That's incredible to me. 22 touchdowns, led the SEC or any ground runner in the SEC. He's decent in as far as pass receiving. He had 21 receptions for 143 yards. But he is just a good running back. Once he hits that second level, he's got another gear too. Runs a .42 in the 40. So he's got real good speed. I think one of his weaknesses is that he might be a little undersized for a feature back. So I think he's going to be more of a complimentary back, kind of like the Kareem Hunt to Nick Chubb type of situation. Some sites list him at 200 pounds. Some sites list him at 192. I also think ball security is a concern for him. He's lost 4 fumbles last year. He shows a little bit of a vulnerability when defenders try to grab and rake the ball out of his arm. But as far as his positive goes, he shows considerably good pop as a pass protector. He's a very good blocker. He knows how to use leverage and technique. Even when you got larger defenders, like defensive tackles coming up the middle, I think he's got great short area quickness. He's got lightning quick feet. He's able to navigate traffic and set up his blocks and follow his blocks, and especially in the gap schemes. And I think despite his size limitation, I think Samson runs with impressive forward lean and contact balance. He's really good about getting extra yards after contact. And that's important. We're used to that with Nick Chubb, and we'll probably be used to that with Judkins. Well,
yeah, definitely not used to that with Jerome Ford. I'm sorry that Jerome Ford's out here catching strays, everybody, but you guys have watched the games. Yeah. I mean, the dude, every time it's 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 12 because he just can't find a freaking yard. And I know some of that's the blocking, but you still need a running back who can overcome and create on his own and make guys miss. And that's just not Jerome Ford's game. So I'm very excited about these 2 running backs. And I like you said, I think Judkins is the starter. Samson can be the good complementary back who can come in and give us a little change of pace or a little different look here and there, and dispel Judkins, of course. But, you talked about he's premier back in the SEC, a major conference, maybe the major conference in college football. And then the next guy to talk about is the one where Andrew Berry deviated from taking players from these major conferences, and he took a MAC guy. And he took Harold Fannin Jr., the tight end from Bowling Green. But I don't care that he's from the MAC. I was so high on Harold Fannin throughout the whole process. I mean, he led the entire country in receiving as a tight end, which is insane. But you had a chance to see him and talk to him at the Senior Bowl. So what kind of inside scoop can you give us about Harold Fannin and what the Browns are getting with him?
Yeah, he was Senior Bowl, and of course, tight end was on my list of players to try to talk and interview. I did an interview with him at a media day. I actually had prepared questions when I brought it, and he was a high school quarterback. He was a 3-star recruit. He stayed in the state of Ohio. He grew up in Ohio. Now he's still in Ohio. And I even asked him that. I said, you grow up in Canton, you go to Bowling Green. What if the Browns draft you? You're never going to leave the state. He said, that's absolutely fine with me. He said, I love the state of Ohio. He says, not leaving and be able to be in a place where my folks can come see me play without having to travel across the country is great for me. Well-spoken guy, very articulate, doesn't have a lot to say though. A lot of his questions were only a few words. I'd pause because I'm thinking he's going to say more, and he doesn't. So you have to go on to the next question. I was able to do an interview with him later with a group of reporters and get some different angles to his game. But he led the nation in receiving yards, 1,555 yards. Now, we're not talking about a wide receiver here. We're talking about a tight end. He led the nation in receptions, 117. Again, those are receiver numbers. Those aren't tight end numbers. That's just absolutely amazing to me. And I asked him, I said, at what point did you realize that offense was going to be throwing you the ball so much? He said, during our training camp, I could see the shift in it, and they just started making more and more plays towards me. He runs a 4.71 in the 40. He's 6'3", so he's not a giant. He's 241, which is, good size for a tight end. But like I said, he grew up playing quarterback. In fact, he was all-state in quarterback. When he got to Bowling Green, immediately they shifted him to a receiver, and then as he grew into the tight end position. But he is, I think his plus is that he's an elite route running technician. He knows how to take on defenders. He knows how to use his body to shield from defenders and to make the catch point more focused for him instead of the defender. Dynamic after the catch, extremely well on yards after car, runs good in the open field. He knows how to run in the open field. We didn't draft a receiver this year. I fully expected us to draft a receiver this year. Did you?
Yes, I definitely did.
Yeah. And when we didn't, I kind of went, what, why didn't we receive? And why did we pass on all these guys that sitting there round after round, especially the second round, especially the third round? Luther Burden out of Missouri would have been phenomenal for us. This is our receiver. This is what we're going to do is we're going to line this guy. We're not going to expect him to block. We're not going to expect maybe block downfield. We're just going to line him up and throw him the ball. He's got decent blocking skills. He wants to be a good blocker. He wants to learn how to be a blocker. Because when I asked him about his blocking skills, he said, I'll learn and I'll improve, and I'll absorb whatever I'm taught. He said, but I wasn't asked to block at Bowling Green. And he didn't grow up as an offensive lineman or a fullback or a tight end. He grew up a quarterback. So he hasn't really been shown how to block or expected to block. But I think we're just going to line him. If we put Jerry Jeudy out there, we put Deontay Johnson and Cedric Tillman out there and put Fannon, David Njoku, there's 5 receivers right there. We know Njoku is a great receiver who can block, who can run the ball, who's got circus-type catches and can jump a mile up. Fannon's got a good vertical jump, too. I think what we've done here is we've just drafted a huge receiver He's going to be a huge end zone or red zone target. But he's got exceptional hands. He's got great ball skills, great route running, exceptional route running, and he's got more routes for a tight end that normally comes out of college. He knows how to run in zone coverage and working back. He works back good to the quarterback. He can block, but he just doesn't know how to, I guess, or was expected to. But I think when they took him, I think Andrew Barry basically just said, okay, this is my receiver. Yeah. We're just going to call him a tight end and pay him as a tight end instead of pay him as a receiver.
Yeah, I think that he'll end up being the big slot guy for the Browns offense. And to me, I just feel like this is a kid, and I do say kid because he's only 20 years old still, that Browns fans are going to end up falling in love with. I think he's going to be a fan favorite player. And, the reports out in minicamp are that this guy is a sponge, and he just comes out there and he's soaking up information. He's coachable, and he just wants to learn, which goes to everything that you said about him, talking to him at the Senior Bowl. He wants to learn, he's willing to learn, and he's capable of learning and adjusting and, doing the new things he's asked, because for him to, he's only played tight end now for 3 years, and it was while he was at college. So the dude obviously picks things up fast and progresses quickly. So very excited about Fannon.
Yeah, and he'll run. He only had 9 rushes last year on jet sweeps, but he's capable of running. But this is just going to be a huge receiver in our offense, another set of hands. And when Andrew Barry signed Deontay Johnson, which may or may not become an asset to this offense, he's one of those problem childs. We'll just have to see if he can just settle down and work out through his maturity, and maybe he's come to the point where he realizes that this may be his last chance or his chance to accomplish something. Otherwise, he needs to go to real estate school.
Yeah, we talked about Deontay Johnson. Hopefully he can get things straightened out this year, because last year was not good for him. Another year like that, and he won't be in the NFL anymore. But, moving on from Harold Fannin, let's dive into what most people want to talk about, which is the quarterbacks, the 2 rookie quarterbacks. And we'll start with the first one drafted, not just because he was the first one drafted, but because he's also the other guy at the Senior Bowl that you had a chance to. Now, did you meet Dillon Gabriel and actually get to talk to him?
Yeah, I talked to him, but I did not get one-on-one time with him like I normally do. I did with the Alabama quarterback. I did with Tyler Shuck, and I did with Jackson Dart. But for whatever reason, Dillon Gabriel didn't fall into that with me. It was in a media outlet, and he was on a podium, and everybody was asking questions, including Mary Kay Cabot. But there was another on after practice, and there was about 4 or 5 of us. And you asked a question, I asked a question. When I got into the huddle out there on the field, I was just kind of surprised at the lack of height that he had. I'm 5'11". I saw eye to eye with him. I was expecting him to be a little bit bigger, but at the time I didn't know that he was only 6 foot. I thought he was about 6'2", 6'3". Okay. So that kind of threw me off. And then when I went and did my research, I realized, this is a Drew Brees type of player. This is a Fran Tarkin type player where they're only 6 foot. Russell Wilson. So that kind of surprised me. That kind of threw me off. But he led the conference in attempts last year through 447 times. Think about that. 447 attempts. That's a lot of throwing. So he definitely knows how to throw the ball, and he's willing to throw the ball. His completion percentage amazed me too. 72.9% of his passes. He threw 404 times, and he completed over 72% of his passes. That's an amazing statistic, if you ask me. Had almost 4,000 yards through 30 touchdowns. is an able runner, can scramble, is really good at taking off. He had 75 rushes, 149 yards last year. Plus, he scored an 7 touchdown. Now what Stefanski likes is he likes a pocket passer. He likes a guy that can run and will run, but is not a runner. And that's what he works with. That's what he's good at. I think that was might have been the problem with Deshaun Watson, because Deshaun Watson is a runner who can throw. Michael Vick was a runner who can throw. And so, but Stefanski likes a pocket guy. Shadur Sanders is a pocket guy. Gabriel is a pocket guy. Both of them can run. Both of them can gain yardage. Both of them can scramble. Both of them can be flushed and still look downfield to throw the ball. But if they don't, then they can run. A lot of guys get flushed and they immediately take off. Both of these guys will look downfield as they're scrambling and as they're running out of the pocket. I understand this now. When the third round came out, there were very few quarterbacks taken off the board. This was Kevin Stefanski's choice of a young guy to bring in and develop. He could have had Will Howard.
Yeah.
He could have had Ewers from Texas. They could have had Shadur Sanders. He didn't choose any of those guys. He chose Dillon Gabriel.
This episode is sponsored by Manly Bands. Guys, is your wedding band old, outdated, or just not the same taste you had when you were younger? Or hey, maybe you're about to get married, but you don't want to deal with the salespeople at the jewelry stores. Manly Bands has the best wedding bands made specifically for men. They have the classic timeless gold and white gold styles, but they also have rings made from platinum, black zirconium, tungsten, titanium, even materials like meteorite and dinosaur bone. Yes, your wedding ring could be made from a dinosaur fossil. That is a real thing. They also have different ring collections, like their Jack Daniels rings made from actual Jack Daniels whiskey barrels. They also have Lord of the Rings and DC Comics band collections. Head over to manlybands.com/dogs and take advantage of their 30% off sale with free shipping. Plus, use promo code DAWGS, DAWGS, when you check out for another 10% off your order. Now, every Manly band comes with a free silicone ring, and if you don't know your ring size, that's okay. You can order a free ring size chart from Manly Bands to make sure that you know exactly the right size before you order. And then if you get your ring and it doesn't fit just right, you can always return it or exchange it without any hassle. And I know this because I like my rings to be a little more loose, and the first band that I got was just a little too snug for the way I like to wear it, so I exchanged it, and the whole process was quick, easy, and I had my new ring in no time. And now Manly Bands is even accessorizing men beyond just your wedding rings with their chain necklaces and chain bracelets made for men by men. And if you need groomsmen gifts or anything else, Manly Bands has you covered with their barware, whiskey glasses, flasks. They even have customized coasters and flight trays. So skip the jewelry stores, avoid the salespeople, and get a wedding band that was designed for you. Manlybands.com/dogs to get 30% off, free shipping, plus get an extra 10% off when you use code DAWGS, DAWGS, when you check out. Yeah, and I think that says a lot. And, you know, we've talked about on the show, Justin brought it up last week, the draft call, the video of the draft call from, you know, the Browns to Dillon Gabriel. They spent a lot of time with him in the pre-draft process. And did you find it, like, whenever the draft pick came out, we were going, Dillon Gabriel, what? Like, we didn't spend any time with Dillon Gabriel during the process. It was all these other guys we were going and doing private workouts with and everything. And then it came out the next day. The Browns did do private workout with Dillon Gabriel. They did bring him to Berea. They did take him to dinner. They just never leaked that information. We had no clue. And I was like, wow, I can't believe they kept that stuff under wraps, because I guess it does speak to the Browns' ability to keep things in-house and not have leaks. So, you know, what does that say about Dillon Gabriel? Were you surprised that they were able to do all those things with him in the process without anybody knowing?
Well, he was on the 30 visit list.
Okay.
It just, I don't know if on Dogs by Natures, if we covered that he came in. I know when Tyler Shuck did, we covered that pretty extensively. because that was an older guy, kind of like in the Brandon Whedon mold.
Yeah.
You know, why are we bringing this guy in? Are we really serious about that? So that was kind of a hot topic for a while. But he did come in, was part of the 30 visits. And I did see a Brown scout with Gabe at the Senior Bowl on the field after practice. But that goes with everybody. You can take Jalen Milroe and all of those guys. All the Brown scouts are going to be talking to them and trying to figure out what they're like, what the answers to questions are, how they are as a person, how they are as a quarterback that can figure out problems and what they do next on the field or what they do in certain situations. They ask those kind of questions all the time. I think Gabriel's got a natural feel for throwing. He's got anticipation on like boundary routes. He consistently hits receivers in stride and on outbreak. At the Senior Bowl, I thought Jalen Milroe, worst quarterback at camp. I thought Tyler Shuck could throw it a country mile. But when I came out of this, and in my daily diary on Thursday, I said that that it's as far as who is more capable of just the Senior Bowl quarterbacks of starting week one, I said it's Dillon Gabriel.
You know, we did an episode talking about the Senior Bowl stuff after you were there. That was back in, February, whenever. And I remember you talking about Dillon Gabriel. I remember you bringing him up and saying that, and I agreed with you. I remember saying, you know, this is a guy that I could see taken in the mid-rounds who eventually ends up starting games for a team due to injuries or whatever because, lack of size aside, he's pro-ready. I mean, he played so much in college, and, I watched him at Oregon whenever he played Ohio State, and it was I had the same Baker Mayfield takeaway, like whenever Oklahoma came into Columbus and beat the Buckeyes. It was like, I freaking hate Baker Mayfield because we can't stop him. Yeah. He's killing us. And it was the same way with Dillon Gabriel. I'm like, this kid, we can't freaking stop this kid. I hate him. And it was the same emotion watching him play the Buckeyes.
Yeah, well, remember Dillon Gabriel beat Ohio State this year.
Yes, I know. I remember.
Yeah. So, a lot of people don't remember that. I think he's got elite ball placement, especially on intermediate throws between 10 and 19 yards. I think Gabriel demonstrates a consistent accuracy. On the 7-on-7s, what they do at the Senior Bowl is they will do quarterback with nobody in front of them, and they'll do a receiver and a defensive back. And so you've got those drills where you're doing the receivers and defensive backs against each other. Okay. Then they do 7-7s, and that's where you're showing more of the receiver sets. Then they do 11-on-11. And of course, that's full field. Gabriel was just consistent, especially on the deep balls. He was very, very consistent on the deep ball. He's got a quick, compact release. He's got consistent mechanics. He generates good velocity. Despite his smaller frame. And I think he's particular effect on his timing routes.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of good stuff in his body of work for sure coming out of Oregon and Oklahoma before that and everything. So were you then surprised that first of all, we used 3rd round pick on Dillon Gabriel when nobody was expecting that. And that was the guy they identified. They went out and they got him. But then were you surprised that they then on day 3 traded back up in the 5th round to also take Shadur Sanders?
Absolutely. And it wasn't because of Shadur Sanders. It was the fact that they were taking a second young quarterback. I mean, why? Why are you taking? In the 3rd round, if they took Shadur Sanders instead of Dillon Gabriel, I wouldn't have blinked an eye. Mm-hmm. I would have said, this is Kevin Stefanski's choice for a young quarterback to bring in. But why? I question why they brought 2 running backs in. I question why we bring in 2 quarterbacks in. And the reason behind that, we still needed a safety. We still needed a young offensive tackle to come in. I think our offensive tackle position is in trouble this year. I do. I think he's in trouble every year. But I think we're in trouble this year. DeJuan Jones may or may not be ready week one. Jack Conklin is always hurt. They signed a guy in free agency. I think we're in trouble. They got rid of James Hudson, which I'm happy about. But I was expecting an offensive tackle at some point, and it never came about. So I wasn't upset. I wasn't mad. I wasn't anything when they took Shadur Sanders. It was just, why are you taking duplicates of the same? Because both of them are going to be developmental. And here's the thing. I fully expect neither one of them to play.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think Joe Flacco is going to be our starter. I think Kenny Pickett was traded to be the backup. Think about it. When he came, Deshaun Watson and DTR were the only quarterbacks on the roster. We know Deshaun's going to be on IR, so we only had DT. When we traded, Kenny Pickett was the only healthy quarterback on the roster.
Right, yeah.
But he only had 25 NFL starts. Played in 30 games, only had 25 starts. But is he your starter? I don't think he is, but he's got experience. And, but I think Pickett was brought in strictly to be the backup. I expect Joe Flacco to be the starter. Well, that means that neither Gabriel nor Shedeur is going to play. So if you're bringing in a guy to be developmental, and you know he's going to sit at least 1 year, maybe 2 years. I don't know. It depends on his progression. Depends on his development. Depends on what the coaching staff sees. Why are you taking a second developmental guy? We still need a safety.
Right.
We still need, do we need a kicker? Maybe we should have taken a kicker. We still need an offensive tackle. We need a backup center. All our centers are hurt, except for Ethan and Bobby. The backup centers, both of them were on IR last year. So there were a lot of positions of need that I thought we could have done. But here's what I think. Maybe they drafted him to trade him. Maybe because he was projected to be a first pick, and now here he's sitting in the 5th round. Maybe they take him just because maybe somebody will want him. You know, attrition happens all the time, and invariably, we'll look at the Saints. They're starting quarterback, not going to play. Well, it's a good thing they drafted a guy.
Yeah.
They got Spencer Rattler, which they like as a young guy, but is he a starting quarterback? We don't know. Is Tyler Shuck going to come in at, what is he, age 26, 28? Is he going to be ready to come in week one? We don't know. So is that a team that come week one, they decide, well, you know, these other 3 guys, we're not happy with any of them. So maybe we can get Shadur Sanders to come in. He looks like he might be ready in Brown's training camp. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what was in Andrew Berry's mind, Kevin Stefanski. I do know this, that when they announced the pick, I thought somebody died in the room. Looking at Stefanski and Berry. I thought somebody just announced their dog died.
They did say that was not necessarily timed up, you know, exactly with what was being shown. Now, whether that's true or not, yeah, whatever. You got to say what you got to say. But I understand the confusion in taking the 2 quarterbacks and all that kind of stuff. But I guess just what's your evaluation of Shadur Sanders as an, you know, individually as a quarterback, you know, aside from the draft capital and the fact that we already took a quarterback before that, like, you know, do you think he can develop into a starter? What kind of traits does he have that you see that translate to the NFL?
Well, we'll see. I like his height. He's 6'2". I think that's a good height for a quarterback. A lot of people want their quarterbacks to be 6'4", and I understand that. The offensive line has gotten bigger, and that's just the way it is. In 1952, there was one 300-pound guy. 1972, there were 32. Last year, there were 538 300-pound guys. So it's a big league now. I think Shadur has elite processing speed and diagnostic ability that consistently shows up in pre-snap. I think Shadur is making NFL caliber adjustments, and he does well with working through progressions and acts like a veteran. when he does this. He's got surgical accuracy in the short and the intermediate game. He's had 74.2% completion percentage, which, like Gabriel, that's extremely, extremely high for anybody to hit over 70%. He's got a rare poise under duress. He had one of the worst running games last year at Colorado, and Shedeur was running for his life a lot. He had one of the worst offensive lines. He had one of the worst running games, period. So he came from a program that required him to think fast. I don't know how he is in going through his progressions. Maybe he never had time to go through progressions. Maybe when he was maybe he did a Tim Tebow and did one progression and then took off. I don't know. But he's got a lightning quick, compact release that maintains consistency across multiple platforms. And he's got command of the huddle. He's a leader. I don't think there's any question that he's a leader. Now, as far as what I think his downfalls are, he can be a little overconfident in his arm talent, especially when he attempts tight window throws. I don't think he's very good at tight window throws. That may or may not translate against NFL closing speed, because in the NFL, defensive backs don't necessarily have to blanket a receiver. They can play off. His dad was famous for playing off. Yeah. He baited quarterbacks by playing off and ended up with interception. I think Shedeur takes too many negative plays. I don't think he's got a natural clock to understand that you've got to be able to get rid of this ball or do something within this certain amount of time. I think he holds the ball rather than throwing the ball away. He took way too many sacks. He shows a tendency to drift backwards under pressure instead of moving up and trying to find a gap in the pocket. Instead of climbing the pocket, he seems to drift backwards. Then he gets into trouble. Then he's flushed. He's flushed outwards towards the sidelines. And this usually gives the defensive end a better angle, or the safety or the linebacker who's rushing a better angle at him. And I think he kind of allows them an advantage by him drifting backward. I also think he needs to improve his recognition and response time against sophisticated blitz packages. If his offensive line is going to be bad, he needs to have a 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and do something with the ball instead of holding it, instead of thinking that the pocket is going to stay and it's going to become solid. And, so we'll see. And hopefully he'll have a great camp. Hopefully he'll develop, he'll learn. I definitely know that the Browns are going to have to do something with him. They're going to either have to keep him. There's no way, or they're going to have to trade him, one or the other.
Well, and we've talked a lot about that too, because, we've got the 2 rookie quarterbacks. We used 2 draft picks this year, on these guys. Obviously they weren't high picks or anything like that. It was a 3rd and a 5th, but now we've got 2 first-round picks after the trade with Jacksonville going into the 2026 draft. So if we don't have a quarterback emerge this year, it is going to get a little dicey in the offseason next year, because it's like, okay, do we have a top one of these picks in the top 5 that we can use on the quarterback? Do we have to package these to move up to get the guy we want? Do we have an answer? Is Shedeur the future guy? Is Dillon the future guy? They've got a lot of answers they got to figure out this year. So it'll be interesting to see what they do as far as, starting Flacco at the beginning, if they transition to one of these younger guys or both of these guys at different points in the season. But I just feel like either way, they're going to have to test the waters at some point, unless things are going really well. We're winning a lot of games. Joe Flacco's leading us to victories. Then I think you just keep rolling, you keep winning. But if we get in a situation like last year where we're losing games, we're not really vying for a playoff spot, it'll be rookie time for sure.
Yeah. Now, Kenny Pickett has said that he's going to be the starting quarterback this year, and good. I think the competition will be, Kevin Stefanski has already said that the competition is going to be wide open. And that's exactly what we want. We want all 4 of them to compete for the starting quarterback. And understand this about Joe he is not an Aaron Rodgers that's coming in. When he only started 6 games for the Browns. He turned the season around. He was comeback player of the year for 6 games. But before that, he wasn't even the starting quarterback for the Jets.
Right.
He was with the Jets for 3 years and started very little. He was their backup. Then when Andrew Berry did not re-sign him for last year, he went to the Colts. He wanted to go to a team that he had an opportunity for him to become a starter. He only started 5 games. So it's not like he lit the Colts up. He's not coming in off of an all-pro Pro Bowl year last year. He's still a journeyman. He hasn't had a significant playing career since 2017.
Right.
Well, that's 8 years ago. That was the year that they drafted Lamar Jackson.
Correct.
So don't think just because we got Joe Flacco again that we've got Brett Favre starting. That we're not bringing in Bernie Kosar again in prime. It's Joe Flacco. So, but one thing about Flacco is he never gets hurt. So if he gets taken out, it's because of a poor performance, or he's not moving the offense, or something to that effect. But yet I expect him to start. I expect Kenny Pickett to be the backup. I expect the other 2 guys to be developmental guys. Now, if it was a situation where we didn't have any quarterbacks and they drafted both Dillon and Shedeur, yes, one of those 2 would be starting quarterback. And it might be a situation where you got Joe Montana with Steve Young on the bench, where they're both capable of being the starting quarterback. But because we got Flacco and because we got Pickett, Pickett's a former first-round draft, but after 2 years, the Steelers just lost faith in him and got rid of him.
Yeah.
They traded him away. In fact, his final year in Pittsburgh, he finished the season with the lowest touchdown percentage of all eligible starting quarterbacks that year. He only threw 6 touchdowns out of 324 pass attempts.
It was bad.
They just got tired. Yeah, it was bad. They got tired of him. They traded him off. Of course, Philadelphia traded him off. The Eagles didn't play him, except in mock-up last year. He got to play in the NFC Championship game there, and he got to play in the Super Bowl there at the end. But both of those were just, hey, you want to play in the Super Bowl? Okay. Hit it, kid. But he's got 25 NFL starts. So if something happens to Flacco, or Flacco fails on the field, they got somebody they can throw in who has at least seen the field, who has at least experienced what NFL football is about, because it's not apples and apples coming from Pitt to come into the NFL. It's not apples and apples at all. It's completely different levels. Same thing from high school to college.
Mm-hmm.
There's different levels completely, but I expect both of these guys to be developmental guys, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens at the end of training camp with 4 quarterbacks. Like you said, let's just say that they do keep 4 quarterbacks, okay? Because if they release Flacco with the idea that they're going to re-sign him, what if somebody grabs him?
Yeah.
Let's say that they're going to release Pickett. What if somebody grabs him? Okay, you've got to weigh out those options. If you keep all 4, that means you got to get rid of a guy that you wanted to keep. Well, the Browns keep 10 offensive linemen. Do you keep 9? Well, I'd rather keep 12. Now, I'd rather go the opposite direction. You keep 1 less safety. You keep 1 less cornerback, 1 less pass rusher.
Yeah.
So it's a hard decision to take, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens at the end of training camp.
Yeah, it sure will. Well, Barry, listen, I appreciate you jumping on here and talking about these rookies in the draft class with me and everything for us and for the audience and everything. Yeah. I'm running up against the clock here because I got to go baby duty while my wife picks up our 4-year-old from school. So dad duty is calling. But again, if you guys want to follow Barry, head over to Twitter. It's Barry at Barry_Shuck, SHUCK, and not Shuck like Tyler Shuck. And then it's dogsbynature.com. Check out the articles over there. Just give them a follow. It's great stuff. You guys do great work, and big fan of yours, Barry.
Thank you very much. Let me give you a football idiom before I go.
Okay, let's do it.
I'm going to tell you where the word hut came from.
Okay.
Before the ball snap, this is exactly what the quarterback says to signal the moment that he expects the snap. This was coined in 1890 by Jeff Hudson of Notre Dame. It came from the military, which uses the usage "attend hut," which means attention. So hut was a short, sharp syllable that could be heard over a long distance. So it serves the quarterback just as well as a drill song leading a march.
That's awesome. Well, Barry, thank you for the idiom, and thank you for all the information today. We really appreciate it. Guys, again, go check him out, and we appreciate everybody tuning in, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dogs Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at The Dogs Podcast. Get your thoughts on the show at thedogspodcast.com.
This episode is brought to you by Danger Coffee. Browns fans, we talk about how Danger Coffee is made free from mold toxins that are in 45% of the world's coffee, but that's not all that Danger Coffee has to offer. Mineral and nutrient deficiencies are a big deal. They make you feel sick, tired, stressed, and they can give you brain fog. These deficiencies negatively affect your immune system, your digestion, sleep, metabolism. Have you ever wondered why you get an initial burst from your coffee, but then you get that little crash not long after? Danger Coffee's patent-pending process remineralizes your body with more than 50 trace minerals and electrolytes, leaving you more energized, engaged, powerful. These micronutrients enter the cells to boost performance. They bind to toxins to provide detoxification support. I know that sounds like a lot, but the bottom line, guys, is minerals matter, and most of us really don't get enough of them on a daily basis. Danger Coffee delivers micronutrients, plus it gives you access to the minerals you already have. Head to dangercoffee.com, use our code DOGS, DAWGS, for 10% off your order, and that code can be used over and over, so you get 10% off every order you make using code DOGS. It's time to start every day off with a cup of coffee that gets you going and actually keeps you going. dangercoffee.com, code DOGS.
Going up.
Prices keep going up these days. It feels like being on an elevator that only goes up.
Going up.
But not at Metro. We're pushing the down button.
Going down.
We've lowered prices. Get one line of 5G data for $40, period. That's 20% lower. And you get a free Samsung 5G phone when you bring your number. Only at Metro.
5-year guarantee on eligible plans. Exclusions apply. See website for details. Not available at Metro with T-Mobile in the past 6 months. Tax applies.
McCrispy strips are now at McDonald's. I hope you're ready for the most dippable chicken in McDonald's history. Dip it in all the sauces. Dip it in that hot sauce in your bag. Dip it in your McFlurry. Your dip is your business. McCrispy strips at McDonald's.